So you're saying it's better to just take that
Well,
route
no.
or have it force sleep?
If there's no constraints on when they get up, then I would prefer, to sleep without it. I would prefer to let them just stay up until they enter their, it's a really remarkably a sharp, in a sense, biological event or a switch in the state of the brain where you go from the so-called wake maintenance zone to the sleep gate. And this has been studied in people in ultra-short sleep-wake schedules, 7 minutes of sleep, 14 minutes of waking around the clock for 2 consecutive days in bed. And the ability to fall asleep within 7 minutes, within a 7-minute slot, or the ability to not fall asleep varies markedly depending on the time of day. And during the wake maintenance zone, it's really easy to stay awake. And then as soon as the sleep gate hit, which is right after that, it's very easy to fall asleep. So the nervous system goes, there's a major switch that happens. And so that's the switch that you want to wait for when you're in an Eastern time zone, and not try to fall asleep during the wake maintenance zone. There's nothing wrong with lying in bed and being quiet and doing nothing if you're comfortable with that. So just, I think that if people are aware that there's this biological wake maintenance zone, then they don't get upset about not falling asleep. It's natural, and when the brain is ready to fall asleep, it will. That could, I suppose, could help people. As a psychologist, that may be something that recommend. That's sort of knowledge. Yeah.
With an athlete, if they had a really long nap in the day, say they're on a flight or just in the day, they sleep for 5 hours, is that going to shift the clock backwards, or they still hit the circadian spot at their normal bedtime?
Yeah, the nap itself isn't going to shift the clock. But what it is going to do is it's going to affect their ability to fall asleep. So it's going to be operating at the level of the sleep somnolence stat. So any naps during the day. Sure.
But once again, the example Jake's talking about, the one thing you don't want him doing if he's staying awake from 1 until 4 in the morning, sitting there playing on his computer.
Yes.
Because that's, so you guys should give him some guidelines if they're going to stay awake.
Is there a recommended number of hours of sleep?
It depends on the individual. We talk about 8
Like
hours.
adolescents, would they require more?
Yes. I think they require at least an hour more. Sleep extension studies have not, there are not very many of them to go on. The one thing but the results of those that have been done are quite they're notable. There was a study done at NIH in the U.S. A few years ago, in which subjects were required, volunteers after the study, were required to actually stay in bed for 14 hours in the dark. So they were interested in which is what it was like in the old days, in the winter, before there was, Thomas Edison brought electrical lights into the house. So we were exposed to natural photo periods. So it was a 14-hour night. So what happens if you live in a 14-hour night? There's nothing to do. Well, you lie in bed and you sleep. And so what they wanted to see was whether people actually slept more. And they had all these performance measures before the manipulation. The subjects went into the manipulation, went into the 14 hours dark schedule. Then they left, the lab, went about their daily business, and came back at night. They were sleeping an hour and a half more a night for the first few nights, and they settled in at about an hour more per night for the remainder of the study. And their performance measures and their mood measures all improved. And they were saying things like, I never knew what it was like to be well rested before. I didn't know that I wasn't well rested.
So there's no real detriment, so if they sleep 12 hours, you're not saying, okay, you're
There doesn't seem to be. There doesn't seem to be too much sleep.
And based on that study, it was for that 4, 6, 8, the more you get.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. There seems to be some value between 8 and 9 hours in that subject population, because there were decrements being seen at 8 hours time in bed and not at 9 hours time in bed. And that's all the more so for adolescents.
Back to our travel schedule, is there any benefits, if we've got an East Coast game on the Saturday, is there any benefits or detrimental effects going on the Thursday to the Friday, or is it more beneficial to go on the Friday, one night's sleep, play the game, come back on Sunday? Or is it better to go Thursday, stay Thursday, Friday, play Saturday, and come back Sunday?
What time is the game?
The games will vary between 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time or 7 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah. For a 7 p.m. game, an evening game, a flight before the game, I don't think is necessarily an issue. It's certainly not an issue from the sleep and rhythms point of view. Whether it's an issue from recovering from travel itself is something that you guys are in a better position to answer that question. I mean, for conferences, it's not an issue, but for physical performance, if I'm trying to, perform sitting on an airplane for 5 hours, maybe it's better to have a full day off in between. And that may vary by individual.
And how would that affect, obviously, from the sleeping pattern if we did go to Thursday? Would having a Thursday night and a Friday Eastern time before we play,
Yeah.
would that be beneficial or detrimental?
Yes, it would be a benefit if it's an early afternoon game, and it's sort of neither here nor there for an evening game, providing that you stay on your Western time.
Yeah.
That would be the best way to do it. Okay.
Any more questions? That injury?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Any studies show increased injury with sleep deprivation?
I'm not sure. I suspect not. I didn't come across it in my review of the literature. But the common sense would be that probably would be an increase in injuries, but I think that's a really important question, and that one can actually get at it with sort of epidemiological analysis of data. Going back and looking at are there, for example, we all think, at least in the hockey world, that Luongo can't play morning games because he pulled his groin and whatnot on a game in whatever it was, Nashville. A couple of years ago, in an early day game, and he insisted he doesn't have a problem with that. But the intuition is that if you're playing outside of the normal playing time, it's especially early in the day, and that's potentially coupled with sleep deprivation because you're playing early in the day and your schedules have gotten moved up, etc. That might make you more likely to be injured, but I would think that it would be more likely. I'm not sure that sleep deprivation per se is going to, apart from just making errors, mistakes, that make you more likely to.
That's what I would think. If you're saying that
Physiologically,
they're fine.
Yeah.
I would say that it would be their cognitive, where their reaction times are slower.
Yeah.
If they're not as quick to respond.
Yes.
Certain movement patterns.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that would be really valuable data to acquire, to find out if that's the case. Just underscore the importance of sleep hygiene and scheduling to maximize sleep.
What about natural light compared to fluorescent tubing and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, it's all light, and the color matters, and what matters most is intensity. So, so as far as your biological clock goes, this is some light, but it's surprisingly a lot less than you think.
Yeah.
So indoor lights are on the threshold of being biologically active. Computer lights are interesting because they're very enriched in blue.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're looking at a little monitor up close in the evening, it can be, biologically active. It is biologically active.
But if we had a locker room that's being designed with blue, having a
that's a
blue
great
light,
idea,
obviously, it intensifies the light capacity for the individual at that time. So that, as I was talking to Greg about, so.
Well, I said that's a great idea because I was thinking of shift workers. It's something that I wanted to do an intervention study with shift workers and have the change room be a room that can be filled with light. When I say filled with light, I'm talking about 10,000 lux or more, which is a level of light that almost makes you feel like you're elevated.
Yeah.
And that's what they use experimentally in the human labs. So it has to be really, really bright to pack a punch. Outdoor light is surprisingly much brighter than we see here.
In Norway, people who breed animals like chickens, bulls, pigs, and farmers. They have this normal farmers. They have instead of 24 hours, they have like a 12-hour day.
Yes.
So they have daylight bulbs coming on.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
after 6 hours sleep, it's dark, and then after 6 hours with daylight, and they feed them twice a day. So the 2 days is 1 day. They're growing faster as well because of it. In North America, you drug them, feed them more often.
Yeah, so they're manipulating photography,
Yeah.
which regulates their growth rates,
Yeah,
and also their reproduction.
because that's more healthy for us who's going to eat instead of
Yeah.
steroids.
Oh, for sure.
And it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah,
They all do.
interesting.
You know, after all the time I've spent with Ralph, I've concluded one thing, but I'll just say it to you, which is that I don't know a high-performance athlete in my life who's not sleep deprived. Right? They're all sleep deprived. I mean, the idea of you know, getting extra sleep is something that they don't ever consider. And the only guys I ever did it were the guys on the ATP tennis tour who slept about 12 hours a day because they knew if they weren't rested, they didn't win. Right? And they had their schedules worked around it. But most of the guys that I would see in almost every sport, if I was to do relaxation exercises with those athletes at this time of the day, half of them would have to be woken up after 30 minutes because they'd fall asleep. Right? It's a reality. One of the things that Ralph taught me was that, you know, these guys are mostly sleep deprived. They don't get enough sleep. So it's something to consider.
Anybody that falls asleep within 10 minutes of lying down in the daytime is sleep deprived. That's
One last comment I want to make too is just to remind you coaches, I mean, we're talking all about the athletes, but frankly, cognitive impairment, it's just as important for, I think, for the coaches to be applying these same principles as well. Sometimes it gets tough and you can get on your computer and there's always tons of things to do, but I think it needs to be reminded that all the coaching and technical staff need to take a look at this with travel as well and follow the same principles for the exact same reasons.
absolutely. Yeah, everything that was said applies to coaches.
There you go.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ralph.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.